In our previous lesson, we looked at democracy and the basic concept. In this lesson, we want to look at principles of government. But by the end of the lesson, you should be able to 1. Outline the features of rule of law, and 2. Highlight some importance of rule of law. Now, when we talk about principles of government, we are talking about those principles that government must observe in order to have effective governance. And we are going to talk about quite a number of them. Now, let's talk about rule of law, the first principle. The rule of law is a concept that states that the law in all things must be supreme. So every government must make sure that the law rules and that the law is supreme. This is to avoid arbitrary rule. So that is the meaning of rule of law. Now, what are the features of rule of law? The first one is principle of legality and certainty. In other words, the law must be certain and the law must be legal. In other words, the law must be enacted by the body assigned to do so. That is the first principle of rule of law. Now, the next one is equality before the law. In other words, nobody or the law is not respecter of persons. Everybody is equal before the law. The law must be applicable to everybody. Then the next one is the principle of liberty. Every law must have in it the freedoms and the liberty of people. Then finally, we are talking about the social and economic welfare of the people, which are the key in order to maintain rule of law. Now, the next thing we want to talk about is the importance of rule of law. The first and foremost importance of rule of law is that rule of law protects us against arbitrary rule. Now, if a government is ruling and is not applying the law, can you imagine how the government will rule? He might do what we call pick and choose. Pick and choose, a situation whereby the government will favor some people over others. But where there is rule of law, the government himself is subject to the rule of law. Then the next one is that it prevents dictatorship and allows for good governance. The rule of law stipulates how the governance must be and how the government must act so that there wouldn't be anything like dictatorship. Now, the next importance is it enhances individuals' rights and freedom. Rule of law is meant to protect and preserve your freedom. Now, where there's rule of law, if anybody infringes on your rights, you can take the person to court, or the person will be dealt with according to the law without fear or favor. Remember, we said that one of the principles is that everybody is equal before the law. Then the next one is what we call it ensures the supremacy of the law. The main agenda for rule of law is to make sure that in a state, the law is supreme and that everybody is below the law, including the government. This is to make sure that there is fair in the state and to also prevent arbitrary rule. So these are the importance of rule of law. Now, today, we've looked at rule of law, its features and importance. In our next lesson, we will look at principles of government, still considering rule of law. See you next time.